The city of Travar stood tall and shining under the twin suns of the planet Voral. Huge towers made of crystal and stone touched the sky, and the people of Voral walked proudly in the streets below. They wore long robes, their faces calm, their eyes sharp. In the very center of the city, there stood a giant metal pedestal, shaped like a circle with sharp golden edges. On top of it was a steel cage. Inside the cage was a small, weak alien. His skin was gray-blue. His limbs were thin, and his eyes looked tired. He sat quietly in the corner of the cage, wrapped in a torn piece of cloth. His name was Zarn, but the people of Voral didn't call him that. They called him the traitor beast. Every day, hundreds of Vorelians passed the cage. Some stopped to point. Some made rude jokes. Others told their children, "Look up there. That's what happens to those who cross us." The cage was not just for punishment, it was a warning, a message to all outsiders: don't mess with Voral. But Zarn was not a criminal. He was not a traitor. He was just forgotten. That same day, a silver ship landed at the Travar spaceport. It carried humans. They had come from Earth to speak with the Voral government. The goal was peace and trade. Among the human team was a man named Tom. He was not a leader or a captain. He was just a tech officer, a quiet man with sharp eyes and a kind heart. He liked to walk around and explore new places. On his first day, Tom walked through the city alone. He liked the food, the music, the strange glowing plants on the walls. The Vorelians were polite to him, but distant. They smiled, but didn't speak much. Then Tom reached the city center. He looked up and stopped walking. His eyes locked onto the cage. Zarn looked down at him. Their eyes met. Tom saw the pain, the silence, the hunger. He turned to a Voral guard standing nearby. "Who is that?" Tom asked. The guard replied, "That is not a who. That is a warning." Tom frowned. "Why is he in a cage?" "He is from a race that once tried to lie to us. We caught him. Now others know what happens when you deceive the Voral." Tom stared at the guard. "How long has he been up there?" 20 years, the guard said proudly. 20? Tom's voice was low. "He's still alive. Yes, we feed him. Enough to survive. Not enough to forget." Tom looked up again. Zarn had closed his eyes. The wind blew dust against the cage. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. His thoughts returned again and again to the cage, to Zorn's tired face, to the silence around him. At the next day's meeting, he sat beside Captain Mira, the leader of the human delegation. She spoke to the Voral officials about trade, energy exchange, and defense cooperation. Tom said nothing, but his mind was still with Zarn. After the meeting, he quietly asked Mira, "Captain, have you seen the cage in the city center?" She looked at him and gave a small sigh. "Yes, I did. Do we know who he is?" "He's from a race called the Delari. We used to trade with them long ago. Then the Voral said they betrayed a treaty. That one they captured during the conflict. Has there ever been a trial?" "No trial. It's how they do things here." She looked serious now. "I know it's hard to accept, but we're guests. We can't interfere. This mission is too important." Tom nodded, but deep inside, he felt something was wrong. Terribly wrong. That night, after the streets became quiet and the shops closed, Tom walked alone to the pedestal. The stars above Voral were cold and still. He carried a bottle of water and a small food pack from his supplies. He stood below the cage and whispered, "Hey, can you hear me?" Zarn opened one eye. Tom slowly climbed a narrow set of steps. On the side of the pedestal, no guards were there at night. It wasn't needed. No one dared go near the beast. Tom reached the cage and knelt. "I'm Tom," he said softly. "I'm from Earth. I brought you water." Zarn said nothing. He just looked at him. Tom reached through the bars and placed the bottle near him. "You don't have to say anything. Just take it." Zarn took the bottle with both hands. Slowly, he drank. Then, after a pause, he whispered, "Thank you, Earthman." Tom smiled a little. "What's your name?" "Zarn." "That's a good name." Zarn looked at him closely. "You are not like them?" Tom nodded. "I don't think I am." Zarn said nothing more. He lay back against the bars, clutching the bottle. Tom looked out at the city lights. Then he stood up and left, without a sound. But deep in his heart, something had begun to change. He didn't know it yet, but soon, the cage on the pedestal would no longer be just a symbol of fear, because a human had stopped to ask a simple question: why is he there? The morning sky over Travar was soft blue with light orange clouds. Voral's twin suns had just begun to rise. The city started to wake. Shops opened. Air transports hummed across the skyline, and Vorelians began their daily work. But Tom was already awake. He sat on the balcony of his room, sipping tea from a small metal cup. His eyes were distant. His mind was full of questions about Zarn, about the Dalari, and about the past that no one wanted to talk about. He had visited the cage again late at night. Just for a few minutes. He had brought food again. Zarn didn't speak much, but he had smiled this time. That small smile stayed in Tom's thoughts like a quiet echo. Later that day, the human team visited a public history hall with their Voral hosts. The guide, a tall Voral woman with silver skin and red robes, led them through a hallway lined with glowing panels. "This is our proud history," she said. "The wars we survived, the worlds we tamed, the enemies we crushed." Tom stayed near the back. He wasn't interested in battles. He waited until they reached a section called the Dalari conflict. A hologram showed a small blue-skinned species thin, with long fingers and bright eyes. The Dalari looked gentle, not dangerous. The guide spoke. "Many years ago, we allowed the Dalari to build trade stations near our borders. They seemed peaceful at first, but soon they shared our secrets with our enemies. One of their envoys was caught and punished publicly. After that, we destroyed their stations. Few survived." Tom raised his hand. "Yes?" the guide asked, her voice calm. "Was there a trial?" Tom asked, "Was any proof found?" The guide blinked. "Voral does not hold trials for traitors. The High Council decided the truth." But Tom looked around. What if they were wrong? The guide's voice became sharp. "The Council is never wrong." Captain Mara gave Tom a warning look. He nodded and said nothing more. But in his heart, the questions only grew louder. That night, Tom returned to the pedestal again. He carried the blankets this time. The air was cold, and Zarn had nothing but rags. He climbed the side quietly and knelt near the cage. Zarn looked up and whispered, "You came again." "Yes," Tom said. "You looked cold." Zarn took the blanket through the bars with slow hands. "You are kind. Most don't even look at me. Some spit." Tom sat down beside the cage. He looked up at the stars above the city. "Zarn," he said, "I saw your people in the history hall today." Zarn's voice was quiet. "What did they say?" "They said you were traitors, that you gave away secrets, that you were punished without a trial." Zarn closed his eyes. "That is their story." "Then tell me yours." Tom said. Zarn stayed silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, slowly and softly. "We came to share knowledge, trade ideas, grow together. I was young, a speaker. I believed in peace. But the Voral, they feared weakness. They feared how open we were. They accused us of betrayal after a Voral ship was lost. They blamed us, though we had no part in it." Tom listened carefully. Zarn continued. "They captured me during a meeting, said I was the face of betrayal, put me here, said nothing to my people. Just silence, no answers, no chance to speak." Tom felt something heavy in his chest. "You've been in this cage for 20 years, yes. I stopped counting after 10. Zarn gave a small smile. "But now, someone listens. That is something." Tom went back to his room that night and searched the ship's archives. He found old diplomatic records, reports of early meetings with the Dalari, letters from human explorers who said the Dalari were peaceful, curious, and skilled in energy work. He also found something strange: no official report of Dalari attacking anyone. Only Voral claims, no neutral proof. Tom felt his jaw tighten. Something was wrong. The next day, Tom spoke quietly to Fiend, a Voral technician he had met during the mission. Fiend was younger than most and seemed more curious than proud. Fiend. Tom asked, "What do you know about the alien in the cage?" Fiend looked around before answering. "We're told not to ask. He's part of the city now, a warning. But do you believe the story?" Tom asked. Fiend shrugged. It's what we're taught. But I always wondered, if he was so dangerous, why keep him alive? Why not just remove him long ago? Tom nodded. I think they kept him there, not for justice, but for fear. Fear that people might ask questions. Fiend leaned closer. You ask too many questions, human. I asked the right ones, Tom said quietly. That evening, Zorn told Tom something new. There's a signal tower, old, buried near the edge of the city. It was once used by my people. Before the gates were closed. Does it still work? Tom asked. Zorn's eyes lit up for the first time. Maybe, if someone like you can reach it. Tom nodded slowly. He didn't know how yet, but if there was a chance to send a message, a warning, or even a cry for help to any surviving Dalari, he had to try. But deep in the heart of the city, hidden behind proud towers and golden lights, the truth was shaking, because one human had chosen not to look away. The city of Travar was full of color and sound. Giant banners flew from rooftops. Music echoed from every street. Lights of every shade lit up the towers. Crowds moved like rivers through the market roads. It was time for the Festival of Power, the most important day on Vorl. Every year, on this day, the people celebrated their strength, their victories, and their pride. And every year, at the heart of the ceremony, one moment stood above all others, the raising of the cage. On this day, the alien in the cage's arm would be lifted high for all to see. The people would cheer, reminding each other that outsiders who betray us will be broken. Children would laugh, elders would nod, and speeches would be made about honor and warning. But this year, something was different. Tom stood near the edge of the festival crowd, dressed in local colors to blend in. His eyes were locked on the pedestal. The cage had been polished. Banners of gold and red hung from the sides. Zorn sat inside, weaker than ever, but his head was lifted. He was waiting. Tom's heart beat faster. He looked down at the small control device in his hand. It was hidden inside a folded cloth. Inside that device was a simple command: unlock the cage. He had built it over the last 3 nights, connecting a transmitter to the pedestal's old tech lines with help from Fiend. Quiet, hidden work, risky. But now, it was ready. He didn't know what would happen when he used it. He didn't have a full plan. He only knew this: today, the cage must open. Captain Mira stood near the front of the festival guests with the other human officers. She didn't see Tom in the crowd, but she was worried. She had not seen him all morning. She had also received a message from Vorl officials. A human had broken a sacred law. They had footage. A punishment was being discussed. Mira had feared this from the start. But now it was too late to stop what was coming. Drums began to pound. Trumpets blared. A Vorl leader, Counselor Revik, stood at a tall podium and raised both arms. People of Vorl, he shouted, today we show our unity. Today we remind the stars we bow to no one. The crowd roared. Revik turned and pointed to the pedestal. Let the cage rise. A loud hum filled the square. Machines beneath the platform rumbled to life. Slowly, the cage began to rise into the air, lifted by smooth metal arms. Zorn was now above everyone. His eyes scanned the crowd and found Tom. Zorn gave a small nod. Tom nodded back. Counselor Revik raised his voice again. This creature behind bars once came with false words of peace, but Vorl saw through the lies. And now he is the lesson. Cheers rang out again. Tom's hand tightened around the cloth. His thumb moved toward the control button. He looked around once more. The time was now. He pressed the button. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then a loud click echoed across them. Square. The cage's front lock popped open. Gasps filled the air. The door swung outward. And for the first time in 20 years, Zorn was no longer trapped. The crowd froze. No one moved. Not even the guards. Tom ran toward the pedestal. People backed away, unsure of what they were seeing. Zorn stood slowly. His legs shook. His arms clung to the bars for support. Tom reached the base of the pedestal and shouted, "This is not justice. This is cruelty." Counselor Revik pointed in rage. "Seize him. Seize the human." Guards rushed forward. But before they reached Tom, Captain Mira stepped between them. "Stand down," she ordered. You will not harm my officer. This is an act against our laws, Revik shouted. This is an act of courage. Mira said, her voice calm but strong. And if this is what your law protects, then your law is wrong. Tom climbed the steps. The crowd remained silent. No one knew what to say. ZA or N was shaking. His feet touched open air for the first time in years. He leaned forward. Tom held out his arms. It's okay. I've got you. Zarn fell into him. Together, they descended the steps step by step under the eyes of thousands. Some Varelians still looked angry, others confused, but a few, just a few, looked thoughtful. Tom walked straight to the center of the square. Holding Zarn in his arms, he spoke loud enough for all to hear. You were told he was dangerous, but he came in peace. He was never tried, never heard, only locked away. Is this how you define power? Is this what you teach your children? The crowd stayed silent. Tom turned slowly, letting everyone see the frail figure in his arms. This is not power. This is fear. For a moment, the world stood still. Then a sound broke the silence. Clap, clap, clap. Someone in the crowd was clapping, slowly. Then more hands joined. Then more. Not all but enough. The pedestal, once a symbol of warning, now looked empty. Counselor. Revik's face was red with rage. This is a crime. We will not forget this insult. Captain Mira stepped forward. You may not forget, but one day, you may understand. She looked at her team. We're leaving. Now. That night, the Festival of Power ended early. The lights were dimmed. The music stopped. And in the dark silence of the council hall, the leaders of Vorel sat quietly, wondering what had just begun. Tom stood near a quiet rooftop garden, looking out at the city of Travar. Below, the busy streets glowed with light and movement, but his thoughts were far from the lights. He had spoken to Zarn again the night before. The old alien's voice was weaker now. His body was thinner than before, but his mind was still sharp. He had told Tom about a hidden signal tower buried under the old trade district. It might be broken or it might still work. If Tom could reach it, maybe someone from the Dalari could hear. Maybe Zarn's people weren't all gone. Maybe peace could begin again. But Tom wasn't alone in his actions. The guards at the city center had started noticing things. A missing food pack here, a drop cloth near the pedestal, and one quiet human officer who always walked alone at night. Word reached the Vorel authorities. And from there, to Captain Mira. She called Tom to her quarters the next morning. Her face was serious. Sit down, she said. Tom sat. Mira folded her arms. I got a message from the Vorel Council. They say one of our team has been seen near the city center during restricted hours, giving aid to the prisoner. Tom said nothing at first, then quietly, he's not a prisoner. He never had a trial. Mira's eyes narrowed. That's not the point, Tom. You know our orders. We are here for diplomacy, observation, not action. He's dying, Tom said. Slowly, publicly. They call it justice, but it's cruelty. Mira sighed. You think I don't see it? I do. I hate it. But we're not in charge here. If you keep pushing this, they'll end the mission. Or worse, they might detain you. Tom looked her in the eyes. Captain, if I walk away from him now, I'm no better than the ones who locked him up. Mira stared at him for a moment. Then she looked away. Her voice was quiet. You have one final warning. Stay away from the cage. No more food. No more visits. Understood. Tom stood up. Understood. But in his heart, he had already made his choice. That night, he didn't go to Zarn. Instead, he met with Fiend, the young Vorel technician, in a shadowed corner of an alley. Fiend wore a simple worker's vest and kept looking over his shoulder. You're in trouble, you know? He whispered. There are eyes watching. I know, Tom said. But we don't have time. Can you help me find the signal tower? Fiend hesitated. I've heard of it. It's below the old trade tunnels. Sealed decades ago. The city left them to rot. Can you take me there? Fiend looked unsure. Why are you doing this, Tom? You're human. You can leave this planet and never look back. Tom didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, because if someone like me won't stand for someone like Zarn, who will? Fiend nodded slowly. All right, I'll guide you. But just once. After that, I'm out. The next morning, Tom acted normal. He joined the team for a meeting. He smiled during the tour. But when night came, he slipped away quietly with a data tool, a flashlight, and an energy blade for cutting. Fiend was waiting near the edge of the city. They walked through an old maintenance tunnel, dusty and dark. Pipes ran along the walls. Strange insects scurried in the corners. The tunnel led them deep underground. Finally, they reached a large sealed door. Rust covered the hinges. Fiend pressed his hand on the panel. This is it, the old Delari Comm Center, used before the council. Broke all ties. Tom stepped forward and began cutting through the lock with his tool. Sparks flew. The door groaned and opened. Inside was a large round room filled with broken machines. Dust floated in the air. Some lights still blinked faintly. Tom stepped forward slowly, wiping dust off a panel. He touched a button and a soft hum answered it. Still has power, he said. Maybe just enough. He worked fast, guided by his training. He connected wires, ran system checks, and aligned the dish toward the stars. Fiend watched nervously. How far can it reach? If I'm lucky, a few sectors, Tom replied. Maybe enough. He typed in a short message in galactic code. This is Tom of Earth. Zarn of Delari lives. He needs help. Respond if you hear. Then he sent it. The system buzzed. A faint signal flew into space. Tom didn't know if anyone would hear it, but the message was out there now. That was what mattered. As they left the chamber, Fiend asked, Do you think anyone's still out there? Tom looked up at the stone ceiling. I don't know, but I had to try. Back in the city, however, someone had been watching. A small, flying drone, silent and hidden, had followed Tom into the tunnel. It had recorded everything, from his meeting with Fiend to the message sent from the signal tower. By morning, the Voral Council would know, and they would not be pleased. That night, Tom went to the pedestal one last time. Zarn looked weaker than ever, but he smiled when he saw Tom. I heard the air hum, Zarn whispered. You found the tower? Yes, Tom said. I sent the message. If there's anyone left, they'll know you're alive. Zarn closed his eyes. Then I can rest knowing the truth is flying through the stars. Tom reached through the bars and held Zarn's hand. It was cold, but steady. Neither of them spoke again. They just sat together in the silence of the night as the stars above Travar continued to shine bright, distant, and waiting. The city was quieter than usual the morning after the Festival of Power. The usual buzz of voices and footsteps was muted. The news of what happened spread fast. Like wildfire over dry grass. The cage stood open on the pedestal, empty. The crowd's eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. Some whispered with fear, others with hope. Inside a small, hidden room beneath the city, Tom and Zarn sat with Fiend, the young Voral technician who had helped them. We can't stay here long, Fiend said quietly. The council will send guards to find you. Zarn looked at Tom with tired eyes. What now? Tom shook his head. We need to get away from the city. Find a place where we can plan our next move. Fiend nodded. I know a place. Old tunnels under the city forgotten by most. They left the room through a hidden hatch beneath a worn rug. The air outside was cool and smelled of stone and dust. Fiend led them through narrow passageways beneath the busy streets. The tunnels were dark and damp. The walls were cracked and covered with strange, glowing moss. The sound of dripping water echoed around them. After walking for what felt like hours, they reached a large chamber. It was an ancient storage room, filled with broken machines and piles of old metal parts. This will do, Fiend said. We can hide here. Zarn sat down on a pile of crates, his body weak but his spirit stronger than before. Tom unpacked a small bag and shared what little food they had. Outside, the city guards searched everywhere. Counselor Revik's orders were clear. Find the human and the alien. Bring them back immediately. But the tunnels were a maze. No one could find the small group hidden inside. Back in the chamber, Tom looked at Zarn. We need to send a message again. Tell your people you're alive and safe. Zarn nodded. The signal tower. It will help. Fiend shook his head. That place is watched now. They'll block the signal if you try. Tom frowned. Then we need to find another way. They all thought silently for a moment. Then Zorn spoke. There's an old ship, buried in the ruins outside the city. It still works. It can leave Voral's orbit. Tom's eyes brightened. We get to that ship, fix it, and send the message ourselves. Fiend looked worried. It's dangerous. The ruins are heavily guarded. Zorn smiled weakly. Then, we move quickly. We don't have a choice. The next day, under cover of darkness, the three left the tunnels. Tom carried a small pack of tools and weapons. Fiend guided them through back alleys and old paths. The city was on alert. Patrols scanned the streets, but the people were too shocked and divided to pay close attention to a small group moving silently. They reached the edge of the city, where the ruins of an old spaceport lay. Half buried in sand and rock was the remains of a small spacecraft. This is it, Fiend said softly. Tom ran his fingers over the ship's surface. If we can fix the power core, we might be able to fly it. Zorn looked up. I know how to pilot this ship. Fiend nodded. But the Council will send forces soon. We must hurry. For ours, Tom and Fiend worked, cleaning rust, fixing circuits, and reconnecting wires. Zorn helped by reading old manuals stored inside the ship. Slowly, the ship's systems came back to life. Lights blinked on the dashboard. The engines hummed softly. Suddenly, alarms rang out. Outside, Counselor Revik's guards had found their trail. Tom grabbed his tool and looked at Fiend. We have to leave now. They boarded the ship just as guards arrived at the ruin's edge. Tom started the engines. The ship trembled as it powered up. Outside, the guards shouted and fired weapons. But the old ship lifted off before they could get close. The sky was dark and filled with stars as the ship rose above Voral's surface. Inside, Tom sat at the controls. Zorn checked the navigation. Fiend watched the monitors nervously. Tom sent a quick message from the ship's communication system. This is Tom of Earth. Zorn of Dalari is free. Help is needed. We flee Voral for safety. They waited for a reply. The seconds felt like hours. Then, a faint signal returned. Message received. We are coming. Hope was alive. Tom smiled for the first time in many days. Zorn looked at the stars, whispering, at last. The truth will fly. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the small ship's windows. The silence inside was heavy but hopeful. Tom, Zorn, and Fiend sat quietly, watching the glowing dots of distant planets and moons. The ship's engines hummed softly as it left the orbit of Voral. Behind them, the planet's blue-green surface grew smaller and smaller. We made it, Fiend whispered, eyes wide. Tom nodded but did not relax. Not yet. We still have a long way to go. Zorn leaned back in his seat, exhausted, but alive. The message was sent. The Dalari may come. But if Voral's forces follow, we could be caught. Tom's fingers moved over the control panel, preparing for possible defense. We must be ready. Far below on Voral, Counselor Revik was furious. The empty cage on the pedestal was a symbol of shame. The Council demanded answers. The search for Tom and Zorn was now urgent and relentless. Elite ships were launched into space. Patrols scanned the stars. But the small human ship was fast and quiet. It slipped through the gaps, using secret routes only Fiend knew. Days passed inside the ship. Food was scarce. The group took turns watching the navigation. Every small sound made their hearts race. Tom kept hoping for a signal from the Dalari. Finally, one evening, a soft beep echoed through the ship. Message incoming, Fiend said. Tom opened the screen. A face appeared. It was an elder Dalari, a tall being with smooth blue skin and shining silver eyes. He spoke softly but clearly. We have received your message, Tom of Earth. We are coming to you. Stay safe. Zorn closed his eyes, relief flooding his face. My people, they still live. But safety was still far away. As they moved deeper into space, a warning appeared on the radar. A fast Vorelian patrol ship was closing in. Tom tightened his grip on the controls. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Fiend activated the ship's shields and weapons. The small ship trembled as it changed course rapidly. Bright flashes lit the darkness as Varelian lasers fired. Zorn stood steady, helping Fiend aim back. The small ship was outmatched but agile. They dodged asteroid fields and used nebula clouds to hide. Hours passed in tense silence. Finally, the patrol ship lost them. Tom let out a breath. We shook them. Zorn smiled faintly. We are not free yet, but we are closer. The Dolari rescue ships arrived just as the small human ship entered the edge of a hidden system, a place known only to the old Dolari. Tall ships with elegant curves and bright lights surrounded them. The Dolari captain spoke through the comms. Welcome home, Zorn. We will protect you now. Tom felt a warmth he had not known before. This was more than a mission. It was a new beginning. Back on Vorel, news of the escape spread. Some citizens whispered of shame. Others questioned their leaders. The empty cage stood silent, a question. Without an answer. Inside the Dolari fleet, Zorn began to heal. His spirit grew stronger with each passing day. Tom was welcomed as a hero. He shared the truth of what he had seen and done. The Dolari leaders prepared to speak to the galaxy. They planned to rebuild trust and peace. As for Vorel, the pedestal stood empty waiting, and the stars above watched quietly, holding their breath. The years after the escape passed quietly, but not without change. On the distant planet where the Dolari fleet had welcomed Zorn and Tom, peace grew slowly. The wounds of the past began to heal. Zorn, once weak and broken, became a symbol of hope for his people. He spoke openly about the pain of being caged, the cruelty he endured, and the kindness shown by a human named Tom. Tom stayed with the Dolari, working as a bridge between humans and aliens. He helped create new alliances, encouraging understanding and respect across many worlds. Back on Vorel, the pedestal stood empty in the city center. The cage was gone. Children asked their parents, "Where's the beast?" Some adults avoided the question, but others began to wonder. Over time, whispers spread questions about the true story of Zorn. Stories of courage and mercy replaced tales of punishment and fear. 1 year after the cage was opened, a new festival took place. Instead of celebrating power with cages and warnings, the people of Travar gathered to honor unity and forgiveness. Tom's name was spoken in gratitude, not anger. Zorn's story was told not as a lesson of fear, but as a story of friendship. Counselor Revik had been removed from power. The new leaders of Vorel worked to rebuild trust with neighbors and former enemies. They sent envoys to the Dolari, offering apologies and invitations for trade and peace. Tom stood once more in the city center, not near a cage, but beneath a tall statue. The statue showed two figures, one human, one Dolari, standing side by side. Hands joined, a plaque read, "When fear locks us in cages, courage can open the gates." Zorn walked beside Tom. He smiled, his eyes bright with hope. "We have come far," Zorn said. Tom nodded. "And we still have far to go." They looked out at the crowd, children playing, adults talking, and a city that was learning to heal. The story of the cage was no longer about punishment. It was about what happens when someone chooses kindness over fear, and how a human's courage helped a silent alien find his freedom and helped two worlds begin to understand each other. The stars above shone brighter that night, as if celebrating the new light in the hearts of many.